Hey everyone, I think it's fair to say the main thing this channel is known for is XCOM 2 solo class runs. As far as I know, I'm the first one who did it on YouTube, and it's what grew my channel into what it is today. It's kind of my thing, I guess. So today I'm really excited to try my first ever solo class run in a non-XCOM game. Of course, I'm talking about Phoenix Point. The rules are pretty straightforward. We're playing on veteran difficulty. We're using honest man rules, so we can only reload in the events of misclicks, glitches, and other such nonsense. And we're only going to use the assault class in combat. As far as how I set this run up, in a regular campaign on veteran difficulty, you begin the game with 3 assaults, 1 sniper, and 1 heavy. I dismissed the sniper and heavy, kicked them out of the barracks, and then I used console commands to add in 2 extra assault units. So we're starting the game with 5 soldiers as we normally would, but they're all a single class. Basically the same way that I've done it in XCOM 2, just there I used a mod, here I used the console. The end result is the same. Now I figured the assault class was the best option to try out a run like this since I consider them the strongest class in the game. They can utilise both an automatic rifle as well as a shotgun, but we don't actually start the game with shotguns unlocked, we need to research them. So initially it's just going to be the assault rifle. As far as how these guys play, they're all about maximising both movement and the action economy. They can learn multiple abilities that allow them to make additional attacks, as well as sharing action points with other troops. They're just a really good all-round type of class. The first mission we're playing here is the initial encounter with the Anu faction. We have to clear out a worm infestation for them. This one's probably the easiest of the faction introduction missions. And as the battle starts, just like in my No Guns run, we're using the promotional items DLC, and that means we have access to the helmet that provides the Frenzy ability. Frenzy is an extremely powerful skill that doubles the movement speed of allies as well as preventing them from panicking. Normally this ability is limited to the Priest class, they're the only one who can use it, but thanks to this helmet, we can actually use it on our assaults. And yeah, the mission goes off without a hitch, we're just fighting worms, they're pretty easy to deal with, and afterwards we can level up some of the troops. The skill tree is a bit different in this game, there's usually only 1 ability to choose per level. Normally at level 4, you're able to combo into a second class, and that gives the soldier access to all the skills in the new class's tree as well. Obviously, for us, that's off the table. And cross-classing is pretty much the best way to make your soldiers more powerful in this game. So not having access to that may very well make this one more difficult than the No Guns challenge run. We'll just have to wait and see. However, there are some additional abilities that each soldier gets at certain levels. These are randomized and they're unique to each individual unit. They're basically this game's equivalent of the training center abilities in XCOM 2. These ones I'm considering fair game, so we can use them if we want to. These skills do not come from another class's skill tree, so it's fine for our assaults to take them. And these extra abilities will be the main way our troops can become proficient with other weapons. For example, Drifter here has an ability that gives him proficiency with heavy weapons. So once we put that on him, which we're definitely going to, he'll be able to use things like grenade launchers in addition to the rifles and the shotguns. And I know someone's going to say that you can use a weapon you're not proficient with. I do know that, but it sucks and I don't ever do it. The second mission is the introduction to the new Jericho faction. This one can be tough as the Jericho soldiers have the return fire ability. This basically means that when we shoot at them, they'll get to shoot back as a free reaction attack. Now when you play as aggressively as I do, often charging straight in to get that close range attack, return fire can be very dangerous. So our options are twofold. We can either shoot at the new Jericho's soldiers' arms. If we disable at least one arm, they will not be able to shoot with their two-handed rifle anymore. So that means no return fire for them. Of course, the same thing also applies to us. If our soldiers get an arm disabled, they cannot use two-handed weapons. Now, the second option is to lob a grenade instead of shooting. Grenades don't trigger return fire. Huh. I can't remember that ever happening before. So this run has taught me something new already, and we're only on the second mission. Now, fortunately, our soldier Aliana has taken minimal damage, so no real harm done, and once again, this one is a pretty easy victory. Next up is the first story mission. I send a couple of our troops up to the roof to grab the research, while forming an overwatch perimeter with the others. Now, we just get a bit unlucky here with the enemies approaching from the opposite side of the building, so the overwatch doesn't really do much. And I probably should have moved everyone onto the roof, but this is the first mission with actual Pandorans besides worms, and I've forgotten how bulky the Tritons can be. So I've just gotten a little bit cocky, and I leave a couple of the soldiers on ground level. It ends up being a bit of a mess. This mind fragger jumps on Drifter, but then just immediately drops dead after doing so. And there was no overwatch here. We did not attack this thing. It just noped out of existence as soon as it attacked. And I have no idea why this happened. Now, there is a second mind fragger, and it then takes control of Drifty without shadow realming itself in the process. On top of that, one of the Tritons moves in and attacks Potato. Now, while this isn't ideal, I have equipped every soldier with a medikit for this exact scenario. We can heal up our boy Potato, and he should be okay. But I'm thinking that jank with the mind fragger really saved our hides. If the first one hadn't yeeted itself for no reason, the two mind fraggers could have controlled both our units inside the house, and that could have been really problematic. It would not have been easy to get someone in there to save both of them. Now, the best way to remove a mind fragger is to use the bash attack. So we do that and Drifter's back on our side, so that's a good thing, but we're not able to use him until the next turn. Because of this, we're not able to eliminate all the Pandorans, and this Arthron repeatedly hits our boy Potato. These creatures really have it in for this guy. Now, thankfully, he once again survives, though barely, and on our next turn we can mop up the rest of the enemies, and we're victorious. Some of our troops have hit level 3, which gives us access to the return fire ability, so that's going to be really nice to have. Then before too long we have our first Haven defense. We're assisting New Jericho in repelling a Pandoran invasion. I will also mention here, we did complete the Synedrion faction intro mission, but it wasn't too eventful, so I didn't bother covering it. For this mission, however, we run into a New Jericho Heavy. Now, in these situations, I'm going to say the Heavy can fight by our side as long as it's controlled by the AI. If we move one of our units adjacent to it, it'll then come under my direct control, at which point we're not allowed to use it in combat. So it's actually better here to leave this girl to her own devices. She'll be more useful to us that way. Pretty much the only time we want to take direct control of an allied unit is either if we have to in order to win the mission, or if they're an assault. If it's an assault, we can take control of them and we can fight to our heart's content. We're not breaking the rules of the run. Then we grab this pretty cool shot of Pokemano gunning down an Arthron standing in the window. At least this crabman went out in style. Afterwards, the Pandoran attack reveals a nearby nest that we can head out to destroy. And there's not too much to say about this one. I'm just trying to rush as many story missions as we can before the Pandorans evolve to get guns. Right now, we have the advantage since we can shoot and they can't, but that's not going to last long. We soon pick up another 2 soldiers, we recruit Coffee Frog from an Anu Haven, and then we have a rescue mission to save some randoms. Now in this mission there's 1 assault and 2 heavies. I'm allowing myself to control the heavies purely to move them to the evac zone. They're not allowed to help out in the fight in any way. That includes deliberately using them as a meat shield. They just have to stay back out of the fight. And we could just leave these guys to their fate, but that seems pretty harsh. I'd rather save them and then just dismiss them from the barracks. Surely that's the nice thing to do, right? And doing it this way does have an advantage since we can break down their gear for resources. So yeah, those guys are gone. We are obviously going to keep the assault unit, and his name is that. Yeah, like that is his name. Not that is his... You know what I mean. He's named that. THAT. Now, because we can only fit 6 units in the Manticore at a time, we've sent that to a different base on the other side of the planet where we have a second Manticore waiting. The Festering Skies DLC gives us a couple of extra Manticores for free, so we're definitely going to use those. I try to hire another assault who can back that up, but the settlement doesn't like us. I think we made a story choice to put them offside when we met them. And because of that, we actually cannot hire the soldier here. I wasn't aware of that either, but it's good to know. For right now though, it seems that is going to have to set off on his own. And that pretty much guarantees his demise if he stumbles into an ambush mission. Let's hope that doesn't happen. We've also picked up purification grenades as a random exploration reward. Getting these things early is great, since we can reverse engineer one, and after we've done that, we can then manufacture as many as we want. Or as many as we can afford, at the very least. Purification grenades set fire to an AoE, and they can be devastating. Just look at how much damage we rack up on this cluster of Pandorans. Look at all those notifications. The game can barely keep up. It's beautiful. And the best part is even if these things do survive, which in this case they don't, but every time they move through a burning tile, they're gonna take even more damage. I had been sporting the regular grenades on all of our troops up until now, but by this stage I've replaced most of them with purification grenades. These things are just too good. After this, we're taking on some of the Chaos Engine DLC missions. Once we complete all of them, we'll gain access to a really OP shotgun for a pretty reasonable price. Now, I had wanted to do these missions before the Pandorans got access to guns, but we just couldn't find the scanning site for the marketplace in time. So our Eldritch opponents are indeed rocking firearms. Now, it makes no difference for this particular mission, the new Jericho one. The Pandorans always have guns here, regardless of their power level. But the remaining missions after this one are probably going to be more difficult now than if we had been able to do them a bit sooner. For this one, the objective is twofold. We have to use a console to activate a nearby armadillo vehicle, then we have to steal the vehicle. Now, as far as vehicles on the tactical layer go, I did think about being able to use them just for transport and not attacking, but I ultimately decided against that. These things are counted as a unit that we control. They take up a space on the Manticore, so they are effectively a unit that is not an assault. And for that reason, using them to give us an advantage on the battlefield, it just felt a bit against the spirit of the rules. So I'm going to say that the transport vehicles cannot attack and we cannot climb inside them. Both of those restrictions make this encounter far more difficult than it would otherwise be. It means we're going to have to escape this place on foot. So what's the strat? Well, it begins the way that I normally would with this mission. We use Frenzy and we send a minimum of 2 soldiers dashing towards the command console. Now, I've increased everyone's speed as much as possible without eating into the community soldier points, so they're moving as fast as they can. Now, Potato is also following to the console, but he is slower. He's the one using Frenzy, so he doesn't actually benefit from the speed boost himself. He just buffs everyone else around him. So that leaves the other 3 soldiers, and I'm trying to creep them up to the armadillo while staying out of line of sight of the enemies. And speaking of enemies, they are brutal on this one. Both the Pandorans and New Jericho are hostile, and between both factions, there's a lot of units in play. If they both target us, we could be in huge trouble. By staying out of line of sight, we want these guys to attack each other instead of us. Before too long, we are able to activate the console, and we then run Pokemano up onto a rooftop near the armadillo. She should be able to dash over to it in one action on the next turn, and that will then give her 3 actions remaining to run as far away as she possibly can from the bad guys. Normally, whatever unit activates the vehicle, we just hop inside with them and drive to safety. It'd be really easy. But that's not an option this time, so Pokemano is really risking her hide here. Meanwhile, this new Jericho soldier has moved up on Potato. We try backing up our boy with Drift and Aliana. I'm trying to disable one of the new Jericho soldier's arms. If we can do that, again we disable the rifle. But we just don't have a good enough angle, and our soldiers cannot get the job done. So Potato ends up getting hit by the rifle. He thankfully survives, he's just on low HP. The problem is, then the Pandorans have their turn, and a Triton also moves in and takes aim at him. And our slow-witted friend goes down. And there's no bleed out or anything like that in this game. If your HP reaches 0, you're done. And this is absolutely devastating, to the point that I actually considered restarting the run, which I didn't end up doing, but the problem is that Potato was the one with the frenzy helmet, like I just said. Now that is a one-of-a-kind item and we cannot get it back. We can loot Potato's corpse to get his weapons, but not his armor. With his demise, it means we no longer have access to frenzy for the rest of the run, and we're just getting started. So this campaign has become much, much more difficult. In some good news, Pokemano at least didn't come under any fire during the enemy turn, so she's ready to move in and activate the armadillo. And just look at the number of enemies surrounding this vehicle. If these things catch up to our girl, she's no doubt joining Potato. Being on a roof seemed to help her last turn, so I move her up onto another rooftop this turn. And again, we're just hoping that the Pandorans will see the Jericho soldiers right in front of them and target those guys over us. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is just racing to the evac zone as quickly as they can, and we're fortunately able to escape with no further losses. Even Pokemano makes it out okay. But yeah, this was brutal. Potato is the one guy we didn't want to lose. He was the most valuable soldier on the team. At the very least, things just got more interesting. Now we have the final mission of the Chaos Engine DLC, and we've picked up a replacement for Potato, not for his helmet though. Now normally what I do in this mission is use a heavy to jetpack over to the spot where we have to activate the vehicle. Then the rest of the squad moves towards the buggy itself to actually activate it. Now since jetpacks aren't an option this time around, we're going with a different approach. The entire team is going to move up as one unit to the activation site. From there, we'll then push forward towards the buggy, we'll engage anything we come across and take it down. Since Pandorans are wielding guns now, the main thing is to stay in cover. There's lots of open spaces in this map, so we're trying to sprint across those to make sure we end our turn in a safe location. Now I've played this mission some half a dozen times, and it was only during this run that I realised there's actually an evac zone right next to the activation spot. How have I never noticed this before? Anyway, Drifter's wielding a shotgun by this point, and these things can be absolutely devastating at
close range.
Dude just murks this Triton. It's so good. And despite taking far longer than it usually does, the mission is still a success. We then hit up the maker. Now that we've finished all the DLC missions, he'll give us the lowest prices possible on his merchandise. I wanted to buy the shotgun, but I've forgotten what it looks like, and I accidentally buy a sniper rifle instead. So that's a pretty big-brained play on my part. And the way the marketplace works is that items available for purchase are random and they refresh every so often, similar to the black market in XCOM 2. And I did return here a couple of times, but every time we visited there was no shotgun for sale. So I'm thinking in the future I won't even worry about these DLC missions. There's no guarantee we're going to be able to purchase the items that we want anyway, and some of them, particularly the new Jericho mission, can be extremely dangerous. Like in this run, the cheaper prices definitely were not worth losing the Frenzy helmet, so I'm thinking it might be easier just to avoid these altogether. Instead, how about we make some story progress? We've got the Prisoner of Ice mission, and the strat with this one is to run up the side of the map to take cover on the big rock. We then pray for good RNG that the bandit berserker doesn't throw a grenade at us as we're huddling together. I start to panic a little bit as he runs into our field of view on his turn. Is he gonna attack us? Thankfully he's out of action, so no grenade this time. And he is quite lightly armoured, so we can dispose of him pretty easily on our turn. The bigger threat here, I think, are the heavies. Normally, Warcry is the go-to strat for shutting these guys down, but assaults don't have access to that ability, so these bulky boys are dangerous. Not only can they wreck us with their heavy weapons if they get line of sight on us, but we also do hardly any damage to them because of their armour. Even using purification grenades doesn't help all that much. Their limbs are bulky as well, so it takes a lot of damage to disable them. Ultimately, I decide not to shoot at the heavies at all. Their armour is just way too thick for our assault rifles, and even the shotgun to be able to penetrate. Instead, we're gonna target the heavies' guns. If we inflict enough damage on the weapon itself, it will be destroyed. At that point, the heavies will have no real way of attacking us, and they'll actually start retreating off the board. As far as the rest of the bandits go, they're not too bad. They don't have that heavy armor protecting them, so we can punch through them pretty easily. It's another victory for the Phoenix Project. Before too long, we have another resource gathering mission. Now, we've just picked up the Danchev AR from the Living Weapons DLC on the previous mission, and that one was a little bit hairy, but everyone made it out alive. So I equipped the weapon on Roy, and just to reiterate, this is his first time using this one-of-a-kind item. We literally just picked it up. I end up running him out too far, and he gets murked by an Arthron. And even as I ran him out there, I knew I was being too aggressive. I guess I was just getting impatient. Now, fortunately, since the AR is a weapon, we can loot it from Roy's body, so we don't have to worry about losing it like we did with the Frenzy helmet. But it is really uncanny how the guys holding the unique items always seem to be the ones getting Shadow Realmed. And because of that, our squad is back to 5 soldiers. That means we're doing the next story mission with 1 less than what we would have had. I've well and truly learnt my lesson after losing Roy, and we play very defensively here. We're just attacking and then running back into cover to break the Pandorans' line of sight. As we do this, we're also exploiting Overwatch as the Pandorans come to our position. And while this mission plays out, it might be a good time to mention the Corrupted Horizons DLC. Now, I have no idea if I'm going to do more solo class runs in Phoenix Point. It'll probably just depend on whether you guys enjoy this video or not. But in any solo class run, we can actually avoid the Corrupted Horizons DLC completely. The only advantage it will offer us is access to mutoids, which we obviously cannot use. That would break the rules of this challenge run. And by avoiding the mission that triggers that DLC, it means we never have to deal with Acherons. Acherons are an extremely powerful enemy, and they did cause some problems in my no guns run. But in this campaign, we're never going to see a single one of those gangly monstrosities the entire time. And that fact alone actually makes playing defensively much more viable. If there was an Acheron on this mission, it could literally spawn infinite enemies until we took it down. Of course, we would run out of ammo before that happened, and we would lose the mission. And yes, I am speaking from past experience with that one. So just the presence of the Acheron is a big incentive to the player to be aggressive. Charge out, eliminate the Acherons as quickly as possible. You'll eventually be overwhelmed if you don't. So this strat of setting up camp and letting the bad guys come to us, it should be viable not just for this run, but for any future solo class runs I do in this game. I guess excluding a mutoids only run, because then we would want to do the DLC. All this is to say, without Acherons, we have a finite amount of enemies to destroy, and given there's no time limit here, we can play as safe and as slow as we like. We do also have new razors by this point, so we can capture Pandorans. Even without mutoids, harvesting these things for mutagens, or even food, still has its advantages. So we should go for the live captures when we can. Anyway, it turns out this story mission was the fake out one, so we're going to have to play this exact same mission all over again. And speaking of DLC, like I said earlier, the Festering Skies expansion gives us access to some free manticores. I mean, we have to activate the base that they're parked at to get the manticore, so it's not entirely free, but you get my drift. Yeah, see what I did there? And this makes the game so much easier to get multiple squads up and running early on. You don't have to spend all that time and all those resources building more vehicles. You've already got them. And yes, Festering Skies is going to make things more challenging later on when Myrmidons start showing up, but it actually makes the early game significantly easier, at least on Veteran difficulty. If you play on Legendary, it provides 0 extra manticores, so that's pretty brutal. And the reason I mention this is that we do indeed have a second team up and running, and they're actually a full squad of 6. That is leading them in the fight against the Pandorans. The trade-off is they are a lower level than our A-team, but even so, being able to explore with a second squad is just going to make everything go so much faster. And so on their debut, these lucky soldiers have been given the highly enviable task of defending a new Jericho haven from the pure. And yes, I'm being sarcastic there, this is going to be a slaughter. If you thought the bandit heavies were bad because of their armor, these pure take it to a whole new level. They have insane amounts of armor, and all the pure troops have this trait, not just the heavies. Everybody. That's one of the perks of having your whole body encased in bionics, I guess. So I'm fully expecting this one to be a bloodbath. We're not gonna play the hero and go running out to save all the Jericho civilians and soldiers. We only need to save one of them in order to win the mission. So as long as we have a single civilian tucked away in a safe location, we should be sweet. Then we're just waiting for the pure to come to us. We can get off some pot shots as they approach. We move out of cover, target them and inflict some pitiful damage, and then run back into our hidey hole. Another option is to throw fire grenades at them. Again, it's hard to cripple their limbs, but at least it will still inflict some damage over time. The Jericho troops themselves are much braver than we are, or maybe just much more foolish. Instead of hiding behind cover like rats in a hole, they just run out to face their opponents, and this results in them getting absolutely shredded. It is a straight up massacre as the pure just relentlessly push forward through the city. Nothing is going to stop these guys. They begin descending on the building we're sheltered in, and look at the damage our mutant boy deals with his shotgun here. It is abysmal. Not all is lost though. Every time we attack, we are stripping armor off the pure, and once we strip enough armor from a particular body part, we can then target it and inflict much more damage. It's just a matter of outmaneuvering the pure until we can reach that point. Ultimately, what ends up saving us is the numbers game. Our fire bombs, as well as the new Jericho meat shields, have done a good job at staggering the pure's arrival. They've all taken different paths to reach us, and so they're normally arriving at the building 1 or 2 at a time, rather than all at once. This allows us to gang up on them, focusing multiple soldiers' attacks against a single pure. And after we've taken enough shots, we will eventually punch through the pure's armor and take them down. It does come down to the wire though. We're battling the last pure, and it's a heavy in point blank range. If this thing survives to its turn, it could easily mow down one of our troops. Glass Cannon is the only unit left with any attacks, and it's just a matter of, is she going to inflict enough damage to destroy this thing or not? Thankfully she does, and the B team win what has to be the most difficult mission to date. This was an intense encounter, and you can see we did indeed save only a single civilian. We did the absolute bare minimum to win this one, but we have indeed won. So the Haven remains standing, at least for now. Both our teams are in close proximity, so I decide to send them both to the Overrun mission. By doing this, we can deploy the maximum number of 8 troops, which I imagine we're going to need here. This is one of the few scripted missions involving the Forsaken, and it can be very difficult. Forsaken operatives are coming to attack the civilians in this building. Step 1 is to climb up on the rooftop. A lot of the Forsaken units have the stomp ability, which we can avoid if we're up high enough. The downside is being that high also makes it difficult for our troops to get a good shot off. So we do send some of them down to the lower levels. Even on the second floor, the stomp attack can still hit us. But even if some of the troops get dazed, it won't be the entire squad. Plus, the stomp doesn't actually inflict any HP damage, so it's not the end of the world. And by positioning this way, the troops on the lower levels can get off better attacks. What could be a problem though is that one of the priests mind controls Coffee Frog. I use Drifter to disable the priest's head, thinking that this will cancel the mind control. But turns out it doesn't. Apparently that trick only works on the Pandoran sirens, not these priests. So this is really bad. The backup plan is to let the bleed and burn damage take this thing out. It's only got 19 HP left, we're doing 40 points of burn and 10 of bleed, so it's going down on the enemy turn, right? Well, no, it's not. He seems to totally ignore the damage and fires at our boy Marshmallow. Thankfully, Marshmallow's return fire kicks in and he takes out the priest. And this happens before Coffee Frog got her turn, so she didn't actually act against us. And from what I can gather here, there's a couple of things going on with the priest. Firstly, it takes half damage from fire, so I guess that 40 damage was actually only 20. Now, it would be way better if the game actually accounted for that and just showed a 20 as the burn damage, but hey, this is Phoenix Point. We can't be expecting polish now, can we? On top of that, the priest seems to have 2 different abilities that regenerate HP. So I think between all of these perks, the priest managed to heal enough HP and reduce the damage over time enough that he was able to survive. And it's annoying, but it's a good lesson for the future. Mutated priests are OP as heck. They need to either be eliminated or drained of their will points super quickly. As the mission continues, I play pretty defensively. Once again, we're just holding up in the building and letting the enemies approach us. Being able to attack and then retreat back into safety provides us some real flexibility we don't have in XCOM. Once the enemy's numbers are thinned out enough, I think it's safe that we can charge out to destroy the few that remain. And this was once again a tough fight. I hate to think how it would have gone if we didn't have all 8 soldiers, but for now, we're holding on. By now, in our 3rd Manticore, the second one that we get for free, this lone soldier backlog is exploring and trading currencies with havens. And that's something you always want to be doing in this game. If you know how to exploit the economy, trading can increase your resource stockpiles significantly. Anyway, Backlog has been avoiding any combat because he's just one guy, but we have this Synedrion Haven under attack. Now he's the only one close enough to help out. Sending a single soldier to take on an entire Pandoran invasion is a terrible idea, right? I mean, maybe, but we'll have the Haven soldiers to help us, and if things go sideways, we can always just dash to the evac zone. So it may be a terrible idea, but nonetheless, this old man is going in solo. He's from an Anu Haven, so he came with one of their shotguns equipped. And I'm thinking that's a great weapon for him given how powerful shotguns can be. We spawn near a Synedrion sniper and we want to stay far away from this guy. If we take control of him, we won't be able to use him to attack. Now, I believe we gain control of him if he approaches us also. So I deliberately move Backlog away from the guy as we really need to keep our distance. We need this sniper in the fight, we cannot afford to lose him. And this turns out to be a bit annoying, since if I had kept moving Backlog on his original path, we would have actually run into 2 Synedrion assaults. Those guys we could have used to attack even under our control. And given how terrible the AI of allies is in this game, I reckon these assaults would be much more effective under my command. Alas, it's not to be. Instead, Backlog is isolated on the map when 2 Arthrons come for him. We take aim at the first one's claw, and I'm just hoping we inflict enough damage to cripple the limb and destroy the claw. That way it won't be able to attack us. Now, of course, that's not what happens, the claw survives. This is a terrible turn of events. If both these things attack our man, he is going straight to the Shadow Realm, there's no doubt about it. We dash as far away as we can. Even if these things can catch up to us, they'll have less action points to attack with. And the plan half works. One of the Arthrons is too far away to attack us on its turn, so that's good, but the second one does get in a few hits. So that means back on our turn, it's an us or them scenario. Both these monstrosities are close enough to attack our man 4 times each if we don't reposition. And there's no way we're going to survive that. So I decide the best defense is a good offense, and we're going to spend all 4 action points shooting twice. We're in
close range,
so the shotgun should inflict mega damage. And sure enough, the plan works, we take down both Pandorans in a single turn. Even the one at full health just gets instantly one shot. Now a third creature appears on a nearby rooftop. We're too far away for the shotgun to be fully effective, so instead we lob a purification grenade. We then heal with Backlog's medkit, and the Pandoran succumbs to fire and bleed damage. And somehow things are actually looking pretty good now. The Synedrion assaults have fallen, but they helped a lot in thinning out the Pandoran's numbers. So we're now at a point where Backlog and the sniper outnumber the final Arthron. An Overwatch ambush later, and we're victorious. We just soloed a mission with a single guy. I'm kinda bummed there's no Steam achievement for that. Oh well, still a great performance from Backlog regardless. This man has put in the work. I've once again kept the A and B teams together for the Shard Gun mission. Normally in this one, I place some soldiers in a vehicle, race over to the schematics we need to steal, and then book it out of there, no need for any combat whatsoever. This time around, because we're not using vehicles, that approach isn't going to work. So we're most likely going to have to dig in and engage the Anu forces in the area. We do have somewhat of a secret weapon though, Aliana. Between her attributes, perks, and armor, I think she has base 24 speed, which is just insane. So we can send her in and she can actually reach the schematics on the second turn. That's normally the same amount of time it takes to grab them using a vehicle. So yeah, she is really fast. She does have one weakness that the vehicles don't though. She needs to expend will points using the dash ability in order to move that fast. And once she's out of will points, not only is she moving more slowly, but she becomes extremely vulnerable to the priest's mind control. I think the way mind control works in this game is that the cost to maintain it every turn is the difference in will points between the unit using the ability and the target. So if the target has 0 will points when they get controlled, does that mean the mind control can be locked in forever? Because that is a horrifying thought. So we need to take the priest down to get our girl back, and that requires moving in the rest of the team to lend some firepower. So the mission lasts way longer than it usually does, but we get everyone out in one piece. I'm thinking in the future, if I do any more solo class runs in this game, maybe we could equip someone in the promotional DLC Infiltrator armor. That would provide them a stealth buff, and maybe we could just sneak in, avoiding detection, and get the schematics that way. The problem is, I'm not 100% sure how stealth actually works in this game, like the mechanics of it. So if anyone can point me to a good breakdown of how it works, please post it in the comments. Then we have another Haven defense mission, and afterwards we almost lose the entire run because the game fails to load back into the strategic layer properly. The UI isn't there, none of the buttons do anything, the game is completely frozen. It takes 2 restarts of the software before it's working again. And apparently this game only creates a single autosave at a time, and it's saved right at the glitch. So we came really close to oblivion here. If you're ever watching me play this game on Twitch, please remind me to save manually on the regular, because losing the run to jank at this point would have been devastating. But with the run thankfully recovered, we send the A-team on the next story mission. And it goes quite well. The Pandorans are deploying sirens by this stage and were able to capture one alive. Honestly, there's nothing much else to add here, it's just the same thing as the previous story mission, but with our victory in this one, we can then head to the next story mission in Antarctica. We seem to be progressing into the end game here, and I honestly don't really feel prepared for it. Because of that, I'm thinking maybe we need a power boost. We've unlocked Forbidden Bionics by this point, and that gives us access to the Vengeance Torso. And just like in the No Guns run, this is going to give us some really useful Terminator soldiers. This upgrade not only grants proficiency with melee weapons, it also makes them cost only 1 action point to attack with. Plus, Drifter and Pokemano have picked up the extra 20% melee damage skill as an additional ability. Now, it's not quite as good without having access to the heavy class skill tree, since that provides a massive 50% extra melee damage, but having access to Terminators in any form at all is still good. Drifter in particular is max level, so he has the rapid clearance ability. That allows him to have 2 action points refunded every time he eliminates an opponent, and it really saves us on the Antarctica mission. We're getting surrounded by a decently sized group of enemies, and without Drifter going Terminator mode, I imagine we probably would have lost at least 1 soldier. Instead, the strat becomes to soften up the Pandorans with the other squad members. We want to leave them on just enough HP that Drifter can finish them off with his axe. Provided he's the one who lands the final blow, he'll get those action points back and we can continue the process until just about all the enemies are slaughtered. Now, a siren does survive, but it thankfully goes for mind control rather than a melee attack. And while having our units mind controlled isn't great, at least everyone is alive, and on our next turn we should be able to dispose of the siren pretty easily, especially when Drifter can make 3 attacks and inflict 160 bleed damage. That is crazy. There is a bit of a complication though, as Myrmidons are now spawning. Remember what I said about Festering Skies making the late game more difficult? Well, we've reached that point. These things are highly mobile and they deal big damage. They're also bulkier than you might expect. Now, Pokemano's also picked up pistol proficiency as an extra skill, so I've given her a paralyzing pistol. It only does 7 points of paralysis damage versus the 8 points of the new Razor, so it's a little bit less, but the advantage is we don't have to be right next to the enemy to use it. We can just shoot it like it's any other gun. So it's a good option to have, keeps her a little bit safer than the new Razor. Anyway, we do win this one pretty easily, but it was only thanks to the Terminator and rapid clearance combo. Without that, I think we would have been in quite a bit of trouble. And it does make me wonder how other classes that don't have access to rapid fire would go in a solo class run. I think it could be really tough. But that's for another day. Right now, that is leading the B team in an assault on the Pure's base of operation. Now, he's also been given the Terminator treatment, but he isn't yet high level enough to have rapid clearance. So without that ability, this could be a more difficult encounter. We'll see how we go. The first step with this mission is usually to find safe cover. And I mean, that's a pretty common first objective in this game. sometimes our spawn locations are just way too open and they leave us vulnerable to attack from multiple sides. So we rush towards the side of the fortress, but we do need to be careful as the exploding spider drones are waiting for us inside. And sure enough, one of them detonates on that, our most powerful soldier in this squad. Luckily, none of his limbs have been crippled, so he's still good to fight. In addition to the Vengeance torso, I also usually give the Terminators the propeller legs. This gives them a jump ability that can make accessing higher elevations much easier. Like here, that can leap right on top of the pure technician and just obliterate him with a couple of hammer shots. In general, melee is a better option for inflicting damage on the pure since their armor does drastically reduce the damage from our bullets. But of course the trade-off to that is we have to get close enough to these monstrosities to use a melee attack, and that can often be quite risky as you'd probably expect. Pretty soon I adopt a similar strategy to the Haven defense mission where we face these tin cans. We're holding up on high ground and that's going to stagger the approach of the pure. They'll arrive in waves, allowing us to deal with them in smaller numbers at a time. And the hammer is a particularly good melee weapon here, seeing as even if it doesn't eliminate the pure outright, it can inflict the daze status. This reduces the target to a single action point instead of their usual 4. The other good thing about this strat is that once we deal with one wave of enemies and we're waiting for the next one to arrive, we have time to recover will points. We can get back half our total will by spending all 4 actions recovering them. Now normally this is risky, but when we're inside a building and the enemies have a really long path to take in order to reach us, we should be fine. And getting these points back allows us to use the dash ability more often, and that's really good for running in, getting off an attack, and then falling back to safety. We really are just trolling the pure at this point. Now with this strat, the encounter takes a really long time as we are playing super defensively, but honestly the pure just do not have an answer for us. As long as that is ready with the hammer when they finally reach our position, we can take them down much quicker than we could back on that Haven defense. So honestly, a surprisingly easy victory here. I expected this one to be much more difficult. Now what isn't going to be straightforward is our first deployment against the Ancients. These things can be devastating with their laser attacks, and we don't have Warcry to slow them down. Now by this stage, Backlog has assembled his own team, and the man himself, along with his underling Canadian twin, are joining Drifter's team for an 8-man deployment. Now I do end up reloading here due to a misclick, and it's really obnoxious. You know how I said before there's only one autosave? Well, it doesn't happen after every turn. See, I accidentally send Twin charging full speed into the middle of the enemies. I didn't mean to click there, so I reload the game, and we're back to the strategic layer. We have to restart the entire mission all over again. I was most upset at this development. Especially because Backlog had this epic hero moment where he was flanked, but he somehow survived 3 hoplites firing their lasers at him all in the one turn. The dude was just a beast, but that's all been undone with the reload. But I guess having to reload one mission is still better than having to restart the entire campaign like I thought we were going to have to do earlier, so I guess I shouldn't complain. So we're on attempt number 2, we're going up against the Cyclops. Drifter's rocking a grenade launcher by now, so we can hit the big boy to shred some of its armor. After that, the next step is to disable the Cyclops' eye, since that'll remove its laser attack. Once that's done, we then focus on the legs, and you might think disabling the legs removes its stomp attack, but apparently that's not the case. This thing can always use its stomp no matter what. But in this instance, that actually works to our advantage. See, crippling the big boy's legs does still reduce its movement speed, so it's not able to reach our position. Despite this, it still insists on using the stomp since that's the only attack it has left. And it ends up hitting its own hoplites in the blast radius while leaving our troops completely unfazed. Yeah, this thing just dazed its own allies. A galactic-brained play there, no doubt. And with the hoplites vulnerable, it's time to activate rapid clearance and go Terminator mode on them. We can take them down quite easily, and then it's just us and the Cyclops. The strat is to just take a shot with each unit, then drop back down to the lower elevation area. With the majority of its legs crippled, it can't reach us for the stomp attack, so it's pretty much defenseless and we can just whittle down its gigantic HP pool. It takes a couple of turns to do this, but we conquer this sizable foe with ease. And once the big chonk is down, we do spend some time searching the rest of the map for the remaining hoplites. The general approach here is to just hide behind structures to block line of sight until we're close enough to them to use melee with the Terminators. Now this was yet another encounter which I was worried about, but once again we've handled it just fine, reload notwithstanding. Now we are going to have more encounters with the Guardians. We have to do 6 of these missions total, so let's hope they all go this well. Before that though, we have the first friendship mission with Anu, and it's actually crazy how long it's taken to get to this. There is a bit of RNG on the strategic layer as to how your relationships with the other factions develop. It's influenced a fair amount by what havens we encounter and the random events we get. Obviously, the choices we make with those events are also going to influence our standing with each group. And for this run, it's looking like we're going to be siding with New Jericho. Now that's not something that I've specifically planned out, things just kinda happened that way. We were able to level up our relationship with them much faster than the other factions. Anyway, on this mission, I try our usual tactic on the heavies. We target their guns to destroy them, but it doesn't quite work this time. See, to my surprise and horror, the heavies are also equipped with grenades. So even though their guns are destroyed, they just start throwing those at us. And not only do we take a bunch of AoE damage, but our cover has been destroyed. We're quickly surrounded by enemies, multiple of our troops are damaged or bleeding, and we're not in cover. So I'm pretty much left with a choice between spending our actions relocating, healing, or attacking. And out of those 3 things, we really only have the actions to do 2 of them. I opt to heal up and then start taking it to the bad guys. I figure even if we do move into cover, that's no guarantee that we're gonna be safe. They could flank us, they could shoot past the cover, they could destroy the cover. I think we're better off just trying to wipe out as many of these guys as we can. Of course, that still has his hammer, and he's really good at dazing these guys. He's actually able to daze 2 of the bandits, and that means we don't really have to worry about them on the enemy turn. They're not going to be able to do anything to us. We then start shooting with the rest of the squad, and the remaining bandits are either panicked or sent to the Shadow Realm. So it was looking really bad for a moment there, but we made quite the comeback. Alright, let's get back to the Guardians. This time Drifter's team is taking on a Mutane field. Now I didn't do any of these Mutane missions in my No Guns run because we didn't need that resource to build any of the ancient melee weapons. But this time around, guns are our friends and we want that sweet, sweet Mutane to make sure that we can build all the ancient weapons. To this end, I've built 2 Synedrion Helios. What's the plural of Helios? I don't know. But the point is, we have 2 of them. We can load these things up with a single soldier each, and then we can send them to scan the mission site to gather the resources the site provides. That's just an aside though. Getting back to the Mutane field, these maps absolutely suck. The area is extremely open and there is very little cover, and that environment really favours the hoplites. They have their shields, so they've always got cover no matter where they are. Plus, their laser can hit from a really long way away. Our best bet is to flank them, rendering the shield useless, but the distance between us and them is massive, and if we try to approach them, they're going to be firing their lasers at us the entire time. Now our troops are strong enough to tank 1 laser shot, but not 2. If we get hit with 2 in the same turn, that unit is going down. And we get super lucky here as 4 of these things take aim at Drifter, but luckily 3 of them miss, and that is the only thing that keeps our boy alive. This was a really close call. So a long-range fight is definitely not in our favour. Instead, we're going to break line of sight. See, the thing is, these hoplites are kind of dumb. If they can see us, they'll just keep firing their laser, and that's the best thing for them to do. But if they can't see us, they'll use their actions moving up on our position. Now, they would be way more effective in combat if they just camped at their current spot and fired at anything that approached them. Fortunately for us, we can exploit their AI very easily. We just hide behind structures, forcing them to move in super close. And once they do, we can charge out with dash, make an attack, and then run back to our cover. Now, this process takes an absolute eternity, but we're able to safely dispose of all the Guardians on the map. And we did it with only a team of 6 soldiers. So really good outing here. That being said, on the next Guardian mission, we have the exact opposite problem. Instead of being too far away, we run into both the Cyclops and all of its hoplites at the same time. And they are right in front of us. We have nowhere to hide from these things. Now I'm starting to panic as there is just so many of them. And the Cyclops has a base movement of 28. So it could run in, use its stomp to inflict daze on potentially the entire team, and that's going to leave us totally vulnerable to the hoplite's lasers. Plus, the Cyclops has a laser itself that it can use. In our desperation, we disable one of its legs, and that's going to reduce its movement to 21, but that's still higher than the base maximum of one of our troops, so it's not going to help that much. I then come up with what I think is a pretty good idea. We can also inflict some paralysis damage on the big guy. Even a single point of paralysis damage will take away one of its 4 actions. So between the lower speed and the reduced actions, I'm hoping that it's not going to attack us. In the meantime, we're falling back behind cover as best we can, trying to avoid the lasers from the hoplites. And in what I think is an amusing twist, the Cyclops runs right up to us, but it doesn't have any actions left to attack. So it just sits there, and by doing this, it inadvertently acts as cover, protecting us from the lasers of the hoplites. So thanks, big boy. Once again, another big-brained play from a Cyclops. And honestly, I think surviving that first turn was the difficult part. Now that we've done that, I think we're out of the woods. See, Drifter can use rapid clearance, that's not anything new, but what is new is that I've finally given him the extra ability that adds 20% damage to his melee attacks. And that 20% is the difference between 2-shotting and 3-shotting a hoplite. So he's able to go to town here, shredding these things much easier than he was able to previously. And even if he does run low on action points, we have multiple units who can use the onslaught skill to give him more. And this completely turns the tide of the battle in our favour as our boy just slices through these ancient tin cans. And once again, I'm really thinking about how this scenario would play out with other classes. Like, what would we have done in this situation with a group of priests? Just that thought alone honestly sounds horrifying. But once again, we don't care about that today. For now, once the hoplites are toasted, the rest of the squad turns their attention to the big man. Or the big monster. Big robot. I don't know. We just want to cripple the eye to remove the laser attack. His stomp attack isn't that bad without the hoplites, and even if he does hit the whole team with it, it's really only going to slow us down. Eventually, we can spread the team out enough that it cannot hit all of us at once with the stomp. And once we get to that point, we can then start shooting with the non-dazed units, and it's just a matter of whittling this thing's health down. Once again, we persevere nicely. In order to make the most of these resources we're gathering from these ancient missions, we do still need to finish collecting the weapon schematics. Now, even though we cannot use every single weapon, the final schematic in the questline is the Scyther, and we definitely want that. it will be a fantastic melee weapon for our Terminators. So that means we're going to have to do every single schematic mission. Now for this one, we're robbing Synedrion. The blueprints are inside a second story room. My plan is to jump up there with Dat's propeller legs, while the rest of the team books it to the evac zone. Now it sounds like a good plan in theory, but a few things go wrong. Firstly, since we're not using the A team, our troops aren't quite as good. And after grabbing the schematics, that runs out of willpower. This means he cannot use the dash and he's going to be moving noticeably slower. Even worse than that, I didn't realise the infiltrator's crossbow can inflict daze. So of course that gets dazed, and now he's going to be moving with only one action point per turn. While this is happening, the Synedrion soldiers are just rushing our position. So we're in a bit of trouble here. Mimic can heal that up to try and keep him alive a bit longer, but that's about it. And on the enemy turn, that is once again bombarded with enemy fire, but luckily this time he resists the daze. If he hadn't, I'm 99% sure he was going to the Shadow Realm. As it stands, he can make it to the evac, everyone makes it out alive, just barely. After that, it's the new Jericho schematic mission, and I'm pretty worried about this one, because it's usually one of the most difficult. The armadillo can use a grenade launcher and hit us from basically anywhere on the map, so we want to avoid that thing at all costs. We need to keep our presence here a secret from that vehicle. Now step 1 to accomplish that is to dash everyone up and hug the nearby building. The idea behind this is just to stay out of the enemy's line of sight. Now of course that can jump on top of the building to grab the schematics just like he could last time. And we get super lucky. The armadillo doesn't seem to notice us, it just drives right on by. And the evac zone in this one is actually closer than on the Synedrion map, so we can run there pretty easily, and the assaults actually make this deployment look pretty easy, but it's mostly because we were able to avoid drawing the attention of the armadillo. If we hadn't, this could have gone much differently, but nonetheless, a win's a win. And with that one done, it just leaves the final schematic recovery mission, and this one can be a doozy depending on the RNG. We're going up against the Forsaken, and they can be a tough enemy. I'm thinking we may be okay since we've been able to build some ancient weapons by now. We've got the Mattock melee weapons and the shotguns known as shard guns, so I'm hoping this will keep us safe. However, my hope is quickly crushed as, maybe surprisingly, a shard gun is not an automatic one-shot on the berserkers. And if these things live long enough to use a stomp and daze our team, well, that's really bad. Now one of our soldiers, Mimic, has the head mutation that makes him immune to daze. The problem is he doesn't have a shard gun, so he's going to be doing even less damage than the soldiers who are dazed. But I do have a little plan up my sleeve to get around this. See, Mimic is right next to close range, and close range does have a shard gun. So we can rearrange their inventories as a free action, and now Mimic can take that shard gun and make full use of it. Even better, the extra ability he's picked up allows him to inflict viral damage with it as well. And this does prove beneficial as the first berserker panics. However, there is a second one that can still attack. And it seems turnabout is fair play as the beefy boy inflicts viral damage on close range, causing him to panic. Not to mention, Glass Cannon has been hit with a purification grenade, so she is in huge trouble. If we move her through the fire, she's going to take even more damage, so I'm not even sure we can run her to the evac zone to save her. She may rack up too much damage and just keel over on her way there. So things are looking pretty terrible right now. Fortunately, that is no longer dazed, so we can use rapid clearance and the Mattock to start taking some of these guys out. Between him and Mimic's shard gun, we can pretty much eliminate all the Forsaken around us. One of them does survive, but it should fall to bleed damage on the enemy turn. Of course, more of them are spawning on the opposite side of the map, so we don't want to hang around too long, but for right now we're safe, the ones close to us have been dealt with. That still leaves Glass Cannon though, and as much as I hate to do this, I don't think we have a choice. We end up sending Anolis into the fire to heal up Glass Cannon. In any other circumstance, we want to avoid walking through fire, but I think we need to top up Cannon's health before we run her through the flames. Otherwise, I don't think she's going to make it. And even when we do run Cannon to the exit, one of the Forsaken in the distance takes an Overwatch shot on her. We're very lucky and it misses, as that may very well have finished her off. Cannon is having a really bad day on this one, but nonetheless, she is safe. Of course, Anolis is also now on fire, so I figure we should get her out of here as well. Now with both of those ladies gone, we only have 4 units left on the field. Now we're right by the exit, so it should be fine. We can just leave, right? Well, sadly not. Remember how close range took viral damage? Yeah, he panics again before he can get to the evac. And panicking in this game sucks. Not only does the unit lose 1 full turn from panicking, they then lose a second turn having to recover their will points. And so we kind of get trapped in this cycle where close range is repeatedly losing 2 out of every 3 turns. Also, remember, more Forsaken are spawning in all the time. And they can spawn on our side of the map. We've just been really lucky up until now that they haven't. But yeah, our luck runs out, and that takes a huge melee hit which just shreds his HP. In some good news, the tentacle Forsaken are a lot squishier than the bulky ones, and the shard gun can thankfully one-shot them quite easily. That makes it easier to thin out the Forsaken's ranks. However, before too long, the mutants are surrounding us, and they can do good damage with their own shotguns. I'm thinking we may lose someone here, but just in time, close range finally has a turn and is close enough to reach the evac. The rest of the team can then quickly follow behind, and everyone makes it out safe. Really, really close call there, and we took huge amounts of damage. But we have made it out in one piece, and now we thankfully don't have to worry about retrieving any more schematics. This questline is done, and not a moment too soon. After this, we take on our first Lair mission, and it's kind of crazy how long it's taken for the Pandorans to start spawning lairs. I would have expected this to happen sooner, but either way, it's a really easy outing here. We're using our best team, and we have ancient weapons on basically everyone, including the Rebuke on Drifter, which is the grenade launcher. And not only do the ancient weapons do amazing damage, they have unlimited ammo as well, so we never have to worry about spending resources on building ammunition. These weapons are just so good. Needless to say, we stomp our way through the lair without much challenge. Next up, we have the Behemoth version of the Haven defense mission, and by now Coffee Frog is wielding the Scorpion, the ancient version of the sniper rifle. She picked up the ability that gives her sniper rifle proficiency, and this one does come at a high price. It applies a -4 debuff to willpower. Now thankfully she also picked up another extra ability that gives +2 willpower, so between both of those her maximum will points is going to be 18 instead of 20. That's not too bad. I think it's a reasonable trade-off to have some long-range support on missions. And it certainly comes in handy here, as we can position her on a rooftop where she can lay down a lot of firepower in multiple directions for us. She's really good at helping us keep control of the battlefield. However, for as much as I praise the ancient weapons, they do let us down a bit against the node itself. We hit it with the shard gun and nothing happens. I wasn't sure what was going on here, and for a moment some of the Twitch viewers and I were wondering if the game had glitched out. But it turns out it's not a glitch. The shard gun just has a pretty mediocre armor penetration. So once we use a new Jericho assault rifle to shred some of the node's armor away, the shard gun can then penetrate it and it starts inflicting damage on the Eldritch Nightmare. It's probably still the wrong play to use the shard gun though, since melee weapons like the Scyther will still do far more damage. And even better than that, it can also daze the giant creature. It's kind of funny, this big mammoth of a life form getting dazed by our little club, but hey, it works. And dazing the node prevents it from using its massive AoE ability. That thing can be devastating, so if we can avoid it, I'm going with it. On our next turn, we're able to finish it off and win the mission. If I do another Phoenix Point challenge run, I think I need to do some homework on how armor penetration works, because my ignorance here certainly made the encounter more difficult than it needed to be. At this point in the campaign, we hit a snag, and it's on the strategic layer of all things. The Behemoth has absolutely wrecked a whole bunch of havens, turning them to the Pandoran side. Now this in of itself is okay. The problem is one of the new Jericho havens is repeatedly sending a Thunderbird to attack one of our bases. So we have a whole bunch of facilities that get trashed and stop working at Phoenix Echo. And this thing doesn't just attack us once. It attacks, leaves, comes back. It's just doing it over and over. So even if I repair the facilities, they're just going to get damaged again. It seems we're going to have to engage with the aerial combat after all. I've been avoiding it until now, not because I think it's against the rules of the run, but just because I really don't enjoy it. And someone might ask, why ban land vehicles from combat but not aircrafts? And it's because aircrafts aren't units on the tactical layer. The rules only apply to actual tactical units. Anyway, my plan is to do what I normally do with the aerial combat and equip the Synedrion laser weapons on our Manticores. These things have a really long range, so you can often take a bunch of shots from beyond the enemy's range. Then, once you get too close and they can actually attack you back, you just disengage from the encounter. Then you can fly back to the enemy and just repeat the process again and again until they're destroyed. The problem is that while that works great on Pandoran flyers, it is an absolutely useless strategy against New Jericho Thunderbirds, something that I learned in this very run. Our lasers can't actually harm these things. I think they have too much armor. It's the shard guns all over again. So the solution, ironically, lies in a new Jericho weapon system, the Marauder. This thing ignores armor completely, so when we use it, we're able to actually inflict damage on the enemy aircraft. So after we've dealt with that problem and our base is safe again, I'm thinking it's time for a more direct solution to the Behemoth problem. We can deny the big boy the opportunity to infect any more havens with the power of death. We've built the masked Manticore, which can not only attack the Behemoth, it can also house 8 soldiers. So that and Glass Cannon are joining the A-team. Now this mission was quite tough in the no guns run, but the thing is, being able to shoot at the enemies, that makes a big difference. The Behemoth's gills are an easy one-shot with the shard gun, so we're not going to have to worry about it dazing us, and the exploding eggs are only a 2-shot. On top of this, we've also been quite lucky with the RNG that our best 3 soldiers, Drifter, Pokemano and Aliana, all spawned on the difficult side of the map. And that's exactly where we want them. We want the best soldiers facing the biggest challenge. These guys are more than equipped to deal with the threats that they're going to encounter. And honestly, there's not much to say here. We win really easily. However, I will include this awesome shot of a Myrmidon getting overwatched into oblivion as it flies through the air. I thought that was pretty cool. With the Behemoth defeated, it's back to the strategic layer and things are a nightmare. Both Anu and Synedrion are at war with New Jericho, so these idiot factions are attacking each other's havens like it's going out of fashion. Just look at the mission list here. 4 different Jericho havens are under siege at the same time. Now there is no way on earth I'm taking the time to do that many missions, especially because in the time it takes for us to fly to all those locations, we'll probably have another 4 haven assaults pop up. It'll just be never ending, so I don't see any point. Instead, we're going to hit the next New Jericho story mission so we can hopefully end the game before these simpletons wipe out humanity altogether. And that mission involves defending Jericho's main fortress from a Pandoran invasion. Tobias West himself is on this one, and I'm pretty sure it's an instant game over if he gets sent to the Shadow Realm. So I make sure to rush Drifter and that over to West as quickly as possible. We need to protect him. However, this turns out to be a huge mistake. See, I move that onto the tile next to West, and that actually gives us control of the new Jericho leader. Now I figure we can hide him in a corner somewhere out of reach of the Pandorans. He's not an assault, so we can't use him in combat, and this should keep him nice and safe. Now while this is happening, on the outside of the building, on the other side of the wall, Pokemano is taking on some Arthrons. We use the Scyther to eliminate them, and that's all well and good, this thing does monster damage, but the thing with the Scyther is that it's a little bit unique as a melee weapon. It actually has a cone-shaped AoE. Now what I didn't realise is that this AoE can hit units through walls. So we end up one-shotting both the Arthron that we were targeting and our own soldier that on the other side of the wall. And I couldn't believe this. I was both hugely disappointed and laughing hysterically. A true comedy of errors if ever there was one. So yeah, the Pandorans didn't even touch us on this mission. They didn't land a single attack, and we still managed to lose a soldier. Just ridiculous. The good news is that with that mission done, we are well and truly at the end game. Now because of this, the A-team is going to need a replacement for that. I figure Backlog is the best choice given he's been pretty beastly this run. Let's hope he doesn't let us down. As the Havens try their best to exterminate each other, we're just staying out of it. Now we are still protecting them from Pandoran attacks when it's convenient to do so, and on this Synedrion mission we encounter our first Umbra. Now these things are absolutely horrible, and I was really glad we beat the game before they started spawning in the no guns run. See, the way these little terrors work is that some Arthrons have the Umbra ability. If we eliminate a unit with this ability, it'll come back on the enemy turn as an Umbra, a spectral zombie type of creature. These things get full actions upon reviving, they have a truckload of health, and they hit hard enough they can take down even a full HP trooper in one turn. The best approach to deal with the Umbra is to never encounter it. Any unit that has the ability, just disable its weapon so it flees, paralyze it, use mind control on it, just do whatever you can to shut it down while still keeping it breathing. That way the Umbra will never spawn. Of course, I wasn't expecting to see one here, so I'm a little bit caught off guard. Now in the event that you do trigger the Umbra like we have here, the next best option is to put distance between your soldiers and it, and then set up some overwatch. The Umbra tanks our first hit of the overwatch, and then it goes after a Synedrion resident. Now we had set up an absolute wall of overwatch shots. We were ready to take this thing down, but the Pandoran is smart enough to avoid our attacks. Instead it takes a different path and goes after the civilian. So we're alive in this instance, but we really don't ever want to be too close to that resurrection tile. I have lost troops to these things in the past, so we're going to want to watch out for Umbras as we move forward. After this, we get the Byzantium mission from New Jericho. I don't think I've ever played this one before. I'm not sure if that's because you have to be allied with Jericho for it to spawn, or if it's just a matter of luck that I've never seen it before. The way it works is it's a multi-mission questline, and the first deployment is pretty straightforward. We're using what's left of the B team after that and Glass Cannon left for the A team. Now these guys have also picked up a new soldier, so they're rocking a team of 5. The problem is none of them are max level. In fact, the new guy is level 1, so he kind of sucks. And we do have high level recruits, but they're on the other side of the planet, and I really don't want to have to fly all that way to pick them up. In this first mission, the team can handle just fine. We're fighting bandits, and the independent armor is so weak we can one-shot even the heavies with the shard gun. Yeah, the days of us not being able to penetrate this armor are well and truly behind us. As long as we get close enough to land a headshot, those heavies are gone instantly. The next mission though is crazy. We're not fighting bandits this time, we're going up against New Jericho soldiers themselves. I think the idea is it's some internal power struggle, so we're helping one group of Jericho soldiers by fighting another group of Jericho soldiers. But it is a crazy brutal mission. There's a massive number of heavies and they're wielding mounted rocket launchers, which not only do a lot of damage, they only take a single action point to fire. And as if that's not enough, one of these guys has a flamethrower as well, so things are much more dangerous than the previous encounter. And then check this out. I'm using the Scyther and the AoE turns red, the heavy's HP bar is flashing. Both of these things are indicating to me that the heavy will be hit by the weapon. So we swing it, but he just takes 0 damage. This was so frustrating. So I'm chalking this up as jank, but if I want to reload, that's going to mean going back to the strategic layer and starting the whole mission all over again. Now I don't want to do that, so I figure we'll just play on, but then the Jericho troops have their turn and it is a massacre. Like they just slaughter us. So I figure maybe it is worth the effort to reload. If that Scyther attack had hit, we would have one-shot the guy, and that would have meant taking one less attack. Maybe that'll make the difference. So we reload, we do the mission again, and spoiler alert, it makes no difference whatsoever. These guys mounted rockets, purification grenades, and flamethrowers just annihilate us. The only real way to avoid the rockets' blast is to be inside a building. The rockets arc up into the air and then come down, so being under a roof can protect us from them. The issue is there aren't any entrances to the building close enough to our spawn point, so we just can't get inside to get to safety fast enough. The Jericho troops descend upon us before we can reach any cover, and we're just like fish in a barrel. Mimic is able to make it back to the evac zone, running away with his tail between his legs. The rest of the team gets torn down. Too much fire damage and too many explosions. This mission is a total failure. It's the closest thing we've had to a squad wipe in this campaign, but at least one guy made it out, so that's better than nothing. Sucks for the other 4 guys though. I was hoping we'd be able to redeploy on the mission, send the A-team and get some revenge. I'm pretty sure they'd be able to handle things without too much trouble. But sadly, this mission appears to be a one and done type deal. We cannot go back to it, so we're not going to be getting revenge for our fallen troops. Maybe we could do that in a future campaign. I guess we'll have to see. Pretty soon on the strategic layer, I need to reload again because of yet more jank. We have the Pandorans attacking one of our bases and one of our ancient sites at the same time. The game hits me with the ancient site first, and as I'm in the deployment screen for this mission, the notification for the base defense pops up. Now I hit cancel so I can focus on one thing at a time, and this causes us to instantly fail the base defense. This is terribly designed. Why can the Pandorans even attack 2 things at the same time? Clearly the game's UI is not set up for that sort of thing. So yeah, another reload right after that cringe New Jericho mission. This is getting really annoying. Now after the reload we dominate both the defense missions and I am now well and truly ready to wrap this one up. The game is breaking, the factions are all slaughtering each other, the mist is spreading across the globe, just everything about this sucks. We need to be done with it. Thankfully, we're finally able to help New Jericho complete the needed research to take on the final mission, so of course we're doing it as soon as we can. We can field 9 soldiers here, so we're taking the entire A-team plus a new soldier in solo. She's never been out on the field before, but she has reached max rank from training facilities. And we have plenty of communal soldier points, so we can kit out all her skills and attributes to the maximum. And it's pretty crazy, even the A-team isn't all max level. Some of them just haven't gotten enough XP to level up all the way. Despite that, I'm confident that these guys are going to be able to handle this deployment. So let's see if I'm right. Now this mission works slightly differently depending on the ending that we're going for. With New Jericho, there's no Exalted to help us out like there was when we did the Anu ending. Instead, we have an object that we need to carry to the Yugothian entity. The changes aren't really going to affect our tactics though. The general layout of the mission is the same. We start behind a giant wall, and you can believe the other side is crawling with Pandorans that want to massacre us. So we're going to send Pokemano out first and use rapid clearance to wipe out all the Arthrons. There is a Scylla here, but she has a massive HP pool. Even if we sent all of our Terminators in, I'm not sure we'd be able to finish this thing off in a turn. And the last thing that we want is to end our turn right next to the Big Mama. She can wreck us with her own melee attacks. So instead, I opt to lob a fire grenade at the Scylla to finish Pokemano's turn. Well, temporarily finish it. We can then give her enough action points with Onslaught for her to make it back behind the wall with the rest of the squad. And the fire grenade here will do a few different things for us. One, it's obviously going to set the Scylla on fire, so that's going to inflict damage over time. But in addition to that, it seems to mess with the Scylla's pathing. She doesn't want to walk through the flames, which honestly makes sense. This causes her to take a longer way around to reach us, and that buys us a little bit more time before she arrives. And having that extra time, it works really well since one of those Arthrons we murked returns as an Umbra. Because the Scylla has been slowed down, we get a whole turn to eliminate the Umbra, which we can do pretty easily, and then the big girl reaches us on the next turn. Now by this point, the Chirons in the back have covered the area in goo. It's not much of a problem for us since most of the team have propeller legs and they can just jump out of the goo whenever we need to. Backlog is the only one who actually gets stuck in it because he's got the mutant legs. But the thing with the goo is that it also protects us in a way. Sure, we can't cross it, but neither can the enemies. That means the Scylla cannot reach us for a melee attack, and that is kind of a saving grace. It can still spit poison though, so the faster we take it down the better. And the ancient weapons really help with this. I mostly prioritise using the grenade launcher and sniper rifles since they're better at longer range than the shard guns. And we want to avoid getting too close to the Big Mama if we can. She's going to be very dangerous up close. And if we use Onslaught to give 2 actions to the snipers, that'll actually give them 6 total. Now, firing the sniper rifle takes 3, so they can actually get off 2 shots with the Scorpion in a single turn, and that is doing big damage. On top of that, there is actually a benefit to Backlog being stuck in the goo near the Scylla. Every pellet from his shard gun inflicts viral damage, and we can actually make the Scylla panic before we eliminate it. And panicking is just as disruptive for the Pandorans as it is for us. The Scylla's not doing anything while she's recovering will points, so even though it takes a while, we eliminate her without too much issue. We take the time to recover our spent will points, getting everyone back to maximum, before we then continue our assault onto the other side of the wall. The Chirons here are easy to wipe out, and then it's time to push into the final area. We manage to destroy the first bomber Chiron, but the second one is able to blast us. Now thankfully it doesn't do too much damage, and then on our next turn we can take down this thing. We don't have to worry about any Chirons anymore. We're then able to turn our attention to Yugoth himself, and the fight is definitely tougher this time than in my no guns playthrough. For one, there are much more enemy reinforcements spawning in, and of course, they have a chance to be Umbras, so they're definitely a threat that we need to pay attention to. In addition to that, Yugoth is being pretty aggressive with the Mark of the Void. He's applying it to multiple soldiers, and we start racking up the damage. The way Mark of the Void works is that it will inflict damage on the targeted unit every turn, as well as any allies within 5 tiles. And it seems to be permanently applied until the target gets Shadow Realmed. So once someone becomes afflicted with the mark, we need to keep them at least 5 tiles away from everyone else. and then we're just going to heal them up as much as we can during the fight, try to stop their HP reaching 0. Now Backlog comes very close to his demise. He's not only marked by the Void, but he also has an Umbra come and hit him for stupidly high damage. Our boy is saved with a medikit from Coffee, and then we just need to separate them again before the end of the turn so that Coffee avoids taking that Void damage. Yeah, you gotta avoid the Void damage. Avoid the Void? And I should mention here, I loaded up the troops' inventories with extra medikits and grenades. I figured we may need them, and I'm really glad I did that, because we do need them. As far as what type of grenades, in addition to the purification bombs, I've also taken a large amount of poison grenades. These things are pretty good at sapping Yugoth's health away over time, and that's something we're gonna need since this thing has almost 9,000 hit points. He is crazy bulky. In addition to damage over time, of course we can also attack the entity directly, but sometimes this is interrupted by Umbra spawns. When we see that one of those things is set to appear, we need to lay down Overwatch fire to quickly dispose of it before it can attack anyone. And that actually ends up being a really big barrier slowing down our progress on the boss. It means multiple soldiers are having to spend their turn overwatching rather than attacking Yugoth. And having our progress slowed this way is very bad since Mark of the Void is hitting multiple soldiers every turn now. I think it's been applied to 3 or 4 of our soldiers. On top of that, the game has a little bit more jank left for us before we finish things off. This Arthron reinforcement hasn't spawned properly. It's meant to pop out of this hole in the ground, but the game is suggesting that it's still inside. Now, it's able to attack solo multiple times. Meanwhile, we cannot attack it back because we don't have line of sight. All this jank is just making my day, I tell ya. So it's around this time Twitch chat tells me that disabling Yugoth's eyes will actually remove Mark of the Void. So sure enough, I start targeting the eyes and it works. Mark of the Void is gone, and without having to worry about regularly healing Void damage, well, that not only makes our troops safer, it also means they've got more action points left that they can attack with. The shard guns are good for this. It seems Yugoth's tentacles and eyes have 0 armor, so we don't have to worry about our pellets being blocked. I also relocate with Solo so that she doesn't get attacked by that bugged out Arthron again, and by doing that it actually forces the Pandoran to change its position. So now we can actually see it. And of course, I'm going to take the time out of our busy schedule to put this cheating scrotum of an alien in the ground. Well, back in the ground. Meanwhile, with the rest of the squad, with all the void marks gone, we can charge everyone in to attack Yugoth. We don't have to worry about isolating certain troops away from the group anymore, we can just charge everybody in. And we hammer this big stupid thing into dust. Without Mark of the Void, it's pretty much defenseless. So it goes down, and then all that's left is for Pokemano to plant the object New Jericho gave us. I think it's some sort of targeting system to allow a massive missile strike to blow the entity into smithereens. With that done, we have indeed beaten Phoenix Point using only the Assault class. And overall, it wasn't even too difficult. Like I said earlier, I think Assaults are probably the easiest class to try a run like this with. I think using some of the other classes, this would be a much tougher run. And I'm certainly open to trying this with all of the game's classes if you guys are interested in seeing it. Just let me know in the comments and maybe like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. If I do try another class, I think I'll make it a focus to reach allied status with one of the factions as quickly as possible. It took us a while to do that in this run, and that's why the campaign took longer than the previous one. And the end game of Phoenix Point is honestly pretty tedious. So if we can avoid that by maximizing friendship with one of the factions as quickly as possible, that's going to be a good thing, especially if it means we can avoid Umbras. I also think if I do any more runs, I'll skip most of the Chaos Engine DLC. We really didn't end up using the marketplace very much at all. I'm thinking we're probably better off just trying to rush ancient weapons and get those as quickly as we can. Of course, that will present its own set of challenges. Anyway, I had fun with this one. I hope you did too. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, have a great day.